This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Well, football is back. I'm the Doc, John Macaroon. Welcome, everyone, to the latest episode of Doc and Jock on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. The weather cooperated. 3 days I've had an opportunity to watch the Detroit Lions. There's been chaos, because you know this. The NFL world is a wild, wild train. Adam's been out to Allen Park. Adams asked Matthew Stafford questions and gotten the funny look like, huh? And Adams covered
I've been
games.
basically told to go to hell.
It's been great to be able to kind of get into it. And within a week, there's drama, a holdout situation, or nowadays, there's a new way to spin it. It's a hold-in where someone doesn't feel happy, so they have the quote-unquote hamstring to keep them off. It was crazy that's what's been going on, because the Lions, it's crazy to say, and outside of all of our feelings about it, the Lions are a real NFL team. They got holdouts, they got drama, they got me first type stuff, they got injuries, of course, that are definitely looked at, because here's the thing. When you're a bad team, it's just basically bitching and moaning. It's just basically who's going to get fired, who's going to replace said player. When you're a good football team, you know how we know. You know how the Detroit Sports Podcast knows, Adam, me. Every little thing is looked at. What does it mean, Doc? Amon-Ra St. Brown walked past you and didn't say hi? Does that mean his ankle's hurt? What does it mean? Oh my God, Jared Goff, I saw him on NFL Network and it looked like he just took one false move. Is he okay? Every little thing is blown up and made a huge deal. The drastic level of interest from the offseason till now is crazy. Every time a player leaves practice, y'all are looking online, going to their social media page, waiting for them to post, chill out. You're then going to their social medias and sharing everything. There's a lot of brands out there now that their job is to go to other people's social media and just post what they post. I love it. I love every minute of it. Y'all are crazy, addicted to the Detroit Lions and the Detroit Tigers because they're falling off the map, and it's not looking good, I don't think, in the early parts of the second Pirates game or the third on a Wednesday. So it's going to be a great episode. Camp started. It's great. Because what have you been paying attention to? I've been out there, and just like everything that you've read, it's as wild and crazy as ever. On Tuesday, there was the and I understood because the not a lot of camps opened the Lions early. I'm like, why the hell is The Athletic here? ESPN's here. There's multiple writers from different outlets. And my wife told me, she's like, John, there's nothing else going on. So they just naturally, they need shit to do. So they sent them to the Lions. And I'm like, holy cow. And on Tuesday, you had SiriusXM and their staff. And you had Sports Illustrated bring Albert Breer. So the Lions are interesting because there's a lot of storylines. There's a lot of things to talk about. And most notably, though, I do want to get your sense, because I do think that, first and foremost, when a player passes, quote-unquote, a physical, a conditioning test, and then the next day has a hamstring injury. He crushed
His
it.
words, right?
Yeah, he crushed it.
Basically, I dominated that test.
I dominated the ace. I aced and dominated the test, but then I got a hamstring injury. That does speak to, like, you and I, if we went to play 9 holes, we'd feel great, and then the next day we couldn't walk. But you're Alex. You're a highly trained athlete, and I think we all know what he's doing. It's like the wink, wink, nod, nod. Like, yeah, you know what you know what I'm doing, and I know what I'm doing, but I can't practice. I got a hamstring injury, and guess what? Guess what will heal it? Guess what the cure is? It's a new one.
Dollar bills,
some dollar bills, and some inking his name. The new cure for hamstrings for the Detroit Lions is a new contract. So, what do you make of what?
No longer do we need ice and heat and rest and elevation. Now, what we need is a couple of Benjamins. Stack those up real nice and put a band around them and put those in my bank account. That's what we need to cure that hamstring. Look, man, I was kind of blown away because when you find out that he, like I said, crushes his physical, his test to basically be able to go out there and be on the field, but then he pulls up with a hamstring. I mean, it tells you everything that there is to know, right? I feel like this is the one thing you say about Alex Anzalone. he has, ever since he's been a Detroit Lion, even when he was with the New Orleans Saints, he has a way about him, and he tries to do things with class. You were out there asking him very direct questions, and he didn't throw anybody underneath the bus, didn't back the bus up on anybody, but he gave you an answer. And he, for the most part, treated you with a lot of respect, too, in trying to acknowledge your question, but not really tread into those waters. And this is a guy who, he's at camp, he wants to be a part of the process, but he also wants to get paid. And when you just look at stats and you look at what the guy means to the team, Alex Anzalone has been a very important part, very important cog to that defense. When he was not there last year because he was banged up with his arm injury, that defense really struggled. You look across the line, actually, you just look to his side. Derek Barnes just inks a deal for way more money than Alex Anzalone has. And that's a guy who also was coming off of a pretty big injury that sidelined him for the season. So he gets taken care of. If I'm Alex Anzalone, I'm looking at this, scratching my head saying, hey, what's going on here? Like, you took care of that guy. I outproduce him in every measure that you have. You can see that I'm an incredibly important piece to this defense. Why aren't you taking care of me? On top of that, you factor in that they drafted Jack Campbell, who was supposed to be Anzalone's replacement a couple of years ago. You got to start asking that question if you're Alex Anzalone, saying, can I get my payday, please? Again, NFL, not for long. Everything could end for this guy on the very next play. So I totally understand why he's holding out, or why he's holding in. Is that the new term that's been coined? I get it, right? I find it to be a little bit amusing, though, because he is at camp. He's participating with certain things, but he's not actually on the field participating. And I think this is kind of him walking that line, saying, I'm not going to do this and risk getting actually injured, but I want you to hear me. I want you to pay me. I deserve to be paid. And I think you and I both agree he does deserve to be paid. We're going to have a conversation here about a player that Brad Holmes went out and brought in and paid a hefty chunk of money. That money could have went to Alex Anzalone. That money could have went to a Zadarius Smith. That money could have went to, I don't know, Trey Hendrickson, if you would have made the trade for Trey Hendrickson. That money could have went somewhere. Instead, you brought back one of your own guys, and it was a head scratcher why you did that. I get why Alex Anzalone is doing what he's doing, and I feel like he deserves to be compensated, especially since when you kind of look at the Lions offseason, you look at what they've done, they didn't really go out and address that defensive line all that much, right? I mean, they did it in the draft, and who really knows if that's going to pay dividends, but you expected with them not going out, signing anybody, bringing anybody in to complement Aiden. Look, Marcus Davenport, if he gives you 4 games this year, consider yourself lucky. Consider it a win. Anything after 4 games from Marcus Davenport, it's been a good season for him. I don't care if it's the third snap in the 5th game. It's been a good season for him because this guy is never healthy. He can never give you quality snaps on the field because he's always hurt. Yet you brought him back in. And you're like, that's going to be the guy who we're going to put opposite of Aiden. Good luck with that. Also, Aiden's coming off a bid and injury. The fact that you haven't signed Aiden and got his deal done for cheap. This is something we talked about last week. Like, I get why Aiden doesn't want to sign that contract. You just seen what happened with TJ Watt. TJ Watt just moved that number up to $41 million. You have Micah Parsons, who's probably going to move that number up someplace close to $43, $44 million. Aiden's just sitting there counting dollar bills at this point. The longer this goes on, the bigger that contract gets for Aiden Hutchinson. And the fact that he wasn't signed this offseason, so you have money out there, and you have more money squirreled away. The fact that you can't come to an agreement with Alex Anzalone is a bit of a head scratcher to me. And again, I think we talked about this months ago when all this stuff first came out, when they were doing OTAs. It was something like just come to an agreement, guys. Like, sign a 1-year extension and just put some cash there, and then you can reevaluate everything at the end of the season. And I don't think he's asking for a ton, right? He makes $8 million. I think he's looking for something closer to the neighborhood of 14. So, I feel like that $7 million, $6 million gap can be bridged. I just don't understand why we're where we're at. It's like, to me, this feels like the wrong guy, and it's a bad look to try to play hardball with him. What are your thoughts on Brad Holmes, and not so much Dan Campbell, because this is out of Dan Campbell's hands. This is all with Brad Holmes and the agent and Alex Anzalone. What are your thoughts on Brad Holmes kind of sticking to his guns here, or at least feeling like he's sticking to his guns and not getting this worked out? This is the first time underneath the Holmes Campbell era that we've had a contract dispute spill out into the media, and it's a little bit weird.
It is
especially
weird
with this guy who's a team leader and a captain.
It is weird, but guess what? That means you're part of the NFL, because here's the thing: there are other factors that are impeding the progress. The team still got to wait probably for Micah Parsons to sign. If he goes to 45, maybe Aiden Hutchinson has a part in this, where Aiden's camp is hit us up when everybody's done and we'll start talking. And Aiden's camp should be like, okay, what that means is specifically, I'll take your call, Brad, when Micah's done, when Trey Hendrickson's done. We know what TJ's at 41. When those two guys are done, I'm going to give you a call. And when I give you a call, it's going to be $1 million to $2 million more than what those guys signed for. So get ready. So Brad's got to wait for that. He knows that there's other things going on. And unfortunately, Alex turns 31. And Alex probably is like, I want 3 years, $45 million. And Brad's like, I know that's what you want, but I don't think that's probably it's one of those deals where I would probably presume that when and this is all speculation in regards to this. Alex said the Lions have made it weird. It's not me. So that means the representation has probably sent a number, and it's probably in the range of what some linebackers have been getting. It's a starting point, probably 3 years, $45 million. And Brad's probably looked at that and has not thrown anything back or given any kind of indication of movement. He's like, yeah, we're looking at it and we'll get back to you. It kind of has the feel.
What do you think about this?
Yeah, I feel like there's no number been given back to make it so that Alex can wiggle. I think that the Lions are looking at it going, man, he wants to. And I think the Lions potentially are leaning toward not doing anything at all. You're under contract, and Brad Holmes can say, you know what? Play under your contract, thank you, and we got your replacement. Jack Campbell, we're directly telling you he's the replacement. Then Dan Campbell goes out there and says, it's Jack's defense. We got to empower him quickly to get after it. He did mention Anzalone in the quote, but he's saying, like, hey, Jack, it's your team. And it's something where the Lions, and it's been done before, where you kind of de-emphasize a player so you don't got to pay him as much. And by quickly going to Jack, you get a cheaper player and you get cheaper labor. So it's one of those things, because I thought, and naturally speaking, what you just said, I thought that they would take care of their guy. But when people on Twitter have said it, there is a requirement to be a Brad Holmes guy. We all know the wrestling fans, a Paul Heyman guy. A Paul Heyman guy is a Paul Heyman guy who is popular, going to be a superstar, and somebody that can be featured on TV a lot so Paul Heyman can talk. A Brad Holmes guy is not a guy that you bring in free agency. A Brad Holmes guy only gets the love in the early contract when you get drafted. Brad Holmes loves his selections, and it's not external free agent. He likes you. He definitely invites you to the table, but you're at table B. You know who's at table A? Those that get drafted, and it's pretty clear. If you get drafted, you're a Brad Holmes guy, and that means you get a contract early. You get looked at. You get the fine dining. You get basically we all go to weddings, and we all the doc knows, because I always sit at table 29C. And I'm always like, man, we got to wait. And they're like, there's no chance 29C goes first. They're like, no, it's based on order. And you look at number one and you're like, oh, man, it's friends and all the drinking buddies. And you're like, man, yeah, table 1A is the draft picks. And they get
Here's the deal.
They get the money.
You walked right into the trap that I laid. and I love you for it, because you set this up beautifully. You did. I think that what's made this weird is Brad Holmes has come back and he has offered him something. But I believe it's the term that is what is weird. I think because Alex Anzalone is 31, this might be his last real payday. This might be his last real cash in. And I'm assuming he probably does want 3 years, $45 million. But you just laid it out perfectly. You have the replacement on the roster. You have the guy that you're looking to pay. And Brad Holmes has come out and basically said as much. I'm going to take care of Jack Campbell when the time comes. He's going to take care of that guy. Right now, you're looking at the 2 deep, the 3 deep. And you got basically Jack and Alex right there. And the thing is, it's just a matter of time before Alex falls off of that roster sheet. And I think that's the big issue. I think that's what's made this weird. Is Brad Holmes has probably come back and said, "Cool, man. I get that you want more money. You're right. You're more than deserving of it. Here's an extra $4 million, right? We'll renegotiate this 1 year deal." And Alex is like, "No, I don't think you understand. I don't want to leave here." Because that's been the other thing that's been said by Alex Anzalone is, "I don't want to leave here. I want to retire a Detroit Lion." Well, it's not your defense anymore. Things are going to slowly be taken away from you, and you probably won't be back next season. And I think that is kind of what has soured some of this relationship. You have a guy who really wants to be here, who really bought in and helped establish that culture that Dan Campbell wanted on the defensive side of the ball. And again, NFL, not for long. Your time with us is not for long. You're going to be on the way out. We have your replacement in Jack Campbell. We will take care of him. You will not be taken care of. If you want, there's a 1 year deal on the table. Sign it if you'd like. If not, totally get it. You're still under contract. You can play under that if you want. I think that's kind of what's made this weird. I think you have a guy in Alex Anzalone who wants to be here and wants a longer term extension, probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 3 to 5 years. And the Detroit Lions aren't willing to go that long with him. The Detroit Lions are looking towards the future and looking to move on. And I think that's what's kind of soured some of the water between the two. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no doubt. It's unfortunately didn't get done, and Alex probably should have just kept it quiet. If you're holding in, you're holding in. You don't need to come walk through everybody, and especially, and it was, I think, premeditated, dude. It's one of those deals where he knew there was going to be a lot of more attention. He knew that he literally walked past Brad and Dan talking to Sports Illustrated, and so it's just the pro move to get it out there in the media and say, "I'm not happy, move this along," and that's a negotiating ploy. And I didn't think Alex would do that. It's smart. Listen, it's one of those deals where it's a natural flow of the recipe and the playbook when you're trying to get something. You put it out there, and he wanted favor from the fans to get it done, and that's what they do. Look, Trey Hendrickson did the same thing. He spoke to the media for 20 minutes. The NFL players only have to speak for 10 minutes a week. Trey Hendrickson walks up during OTAs and is like, "Hey, everybody, let's do a double session and tell me everything, and I'll give you all the details you want." So that's the playbook. And it's probably the right thing to do, but in the framework of the team, it's noise. And I don't think that a player of Alex's stature should be doing that. And in the end, if you know that's what it is, you go balls to the wall, finish out. And guess what? You want to retire. But I do think that athletes sometimes do get a little uncomfortable playing on the last year of your deal because if you get hurt. Mm-hmm. But guess what? If Alex shines, there's probably one NFL team that'll give him $15 million for 1 year. And if you're just willing to uplift, I know he's got a young family, but sometimes in the business world, you say, "Okay, I'll finish my career, but I got to finish with a different team." And you try, and guess what? I know it stings and it hurts, and you want the security, you want the guaranteed, you want the big raise, the fat check in your money now. But if you go through the year and just play your game, bet on yourself for 1 more year, Von Miller has been maneuvering around the league. And I just think the payday will be there, but it might be with a different team. And I think this might be Alex's last year with the Detroit Lions. And it's the stiff part of the business, but I'm not so certain at this point that Alex is going to retire with the Detroit Lions. Because how nervous are you about the injuries? It's popped up. It's been the big talking point. Levi, that's the first news of the camp. Levi was going to miss a month, and then Dan Campbell drops the hammer, and it's going to be season long. He's been dealing with knee issues. After he signed, the knee just was bothering him, and it's an ACL issue, and he took care of it. And unfortunately, Dan Campbell slammed the door shut. 2025, in the entirety through the regular season and the postseason, you will not see Levi Onwuzurike. How big of a blow is it? And does it again remind you, make you even more hypersensitive to the fact that, man, you were counting on a defensive lineman. He won't be there. He's gone for the year and probably done ever playing again for the Lions.
It makes me frustrated because this was a guy who I didn't want here in the first place. This was a guy who you could have took that $5 million that you gave him and you could have given that to somebody else. You could have worked that into a deal with a guy like Alex Anzalone. You could have work that into a deal with a possible trade for a guy like Trey Hendrickson. You could have done any number of things. You could have re-signed Zadarius Smith with that money. Instead, you chose to give it to Levi Onwuzurike, who since the first day he was drafted has been injured, has been a bust, has not produced the way he was supposed to produce. And then you go out and you re-sign him. Which was a head scratcher all in and of itself because he didn't play all that well last year, even when they needed him. And he had a ton of opportunities. He was very, very, very average. And I'm being polite by saying average because he was below. This was not this guy was given a prime opportunity to take the bull by the horns, and he dropped the ball. And yet, what do? You go out, you re-sign him, and you reward him with a $5 million 1-year deal. At the time, I lost it on here. I didn't understand it. Still don't get it. And then camp gets underway, and all of a sudden you start hearing stuff like he's dealing with a sore knee, he's got a little tenderness, yada yada yada. And then the big news breaks over the weekend, Sunday to Monday, that he's got a torn ACL, and you're like, wait, what? What the hell just happened here? How long has this knee been bothering him? Why would you bring him in? Why would you give him a contract? Brad Holmes, excuse me, are you awake? Is anybody home? What the hell are you doing, bro? What is going on here? This is a guy who underperformed the last 4 years he was with you. He now comes back to you with a bum knee and you want to lace him up with $5 million and then he's going to have surgery and he's done for the year? This is what we're doing. I think we're starting to see a major flaw with Brad Holmes. We're starting to see a major issue with the way Brad Holmes conducts his roster. And this goes right back to what we were talking about with Alex Anzalone. If you are a Brad Holmes guy, you get preferential treatment. You will get taken care of. That's all fine and good. I get that you have a relationship with Levi. I get that you invested time and resources and you scouted him and you've watched him grow and you've watched him develop. But you know what I've watched him develop into? He's developed into an orange construction barrel. The guy does not give you the production that you need him to give you, and you go ahead and you give him $5 million. You can go get a guy like Zadarius Smith. And look, I'm not huge on Zadarius Smith. Zadarius Smith is not the guy that I want to see opposite of Aiden Hutchinson. But what I will tell you is Zadarius Smith, even at his advanced age, still gives production, still has the ability to get to the quarterback, still has the ability to collapse the pocket, still has the ability to provide pressures. And look, I know he is primarily outside. Levi can play inside. Levi can play outside. There's some versatility there. I know Brad and Dan really like that. I don't give a shit. You know what's important? Get to the quarterback. Making the quarterback uncomfortable. And Zadarius Smith, opposite of Aiden Hutchinson, I would love to see what that looked like. That $5 million could have went towards him, could have got that deal done, and you'd have been in a much better place. Instead, you're now down a guy because you either didn't do your due diligence going into the year, you might not have trusted your medical doctors, or maybe Levi played you for a $5 million payday. Either way, he's not on the roster. This is another black eye against Brad Holmes, and he's starting to rack these up. I know Lions fans want to worship the ground that this guy walks on because he has taken an absolute dumpster fire of a franchise and team, and he's turned it into something that can get into the playoffs. But you need to be critical, and you need to look at what has happened. Brad Holmes has swung and missed. Brad Holmes has some very big swings and misses. A guy like Hendon Hooker, who I want you to tell me what you're seeing at camp when we get done with this, because he's been all over the newspapers. He's been all over the press clippings. That's another guy that you moved up to go get, and he could be out the door. Broderick Martin, another guy you moved up to get, and he provides you with a whole lot of nothing. There's a lot of moving to get guys that probably would have been there, and you're getting zero production. As good as Brad Holmes is with a lot of things, he has a lot of swings and misses, and you really need to be critical and stop giving this man a pass, because this right here, this Levi Onwuzurike situation was a big miss and could really hamper and hamstring the rest of the season. This season could go down the drain very quickly because this was a guy who you were counting on getting a lot of snaps out of, This was a guy who you were counting to help you with that edge rush. He was going to be a rotational player on that opposite side of Aiden. This was a guy who was going to help fill in and try to give you some production, even though his past 4 years didn't show you a whole lot of anything. And yet Brad Holmes still felt the need to go and sign and bring back his guy, his boy. And you know what we have now? We've got a big hole in the middle of that defensive line. I'm starting to get a little bit irritated with Brad Holmes and the way he conducts himself. And it's not so much the condescending nature that he has with the media. That irks me and pisses me off. But it's when he thinks he's the smartest guy in the room and goes out and does shit like this and brings in a guy like Levi Onwuzurike when there is much better talent to be had. But because it's not your guy, I don't have the relationship with him. I scouted this guy. I know what kind of bubblegum flavor he really likes. I know what his crap smells like when he takes a shit. I don't care. I need talent on that D line. I need guys who can get to the quarterback. I need guys who can collapse that pocket and stop the run. Levi Onwuzurike was not great at any of those things. Do you see an issue with the way Brad Holmes is putting together this roster? Because I kind of taken away a little bit of what we talked about with Alex Anzalone. I think you might. I think you might be a little bit more in line with me. Yes, Brad Holmes has done a lot of really good things, but I think we're really starting to see red flags start to mount in the corner of the room that Brad Holmes resides in.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right, man. Man, it's a team that has big goals. It's a team that everything's under the microscope. And I look at this football team and I say, moving forward, there's going to be some talent acquisition that needs to take place. I think that
it feels like we're right back where we were last year.
No.
This is pretty much what happened when we got to week 4 or 5 of the season. Actually, before the season, we were having a very similar conversation.
Right.
But by the time all those injuries mounted, we were having the same exact conversation. And it doesn't feel like they were as aggressive as they needed to be in the offseason.
Right. And I think that that's where the issue is that Levi Onwuzurike was a player that probably you could say didn't need to be brought back. And it's just one of those deals where you had to make the tough decision. But again, the way I've been conceptualizing it is they took the chance on a cheaper player because of the fact that Aiden's going to break the bank. They just unfortunately sacrificed. They know that there's guys with injury concerns, but that's why they brought back Emmanuel Mosley. It's not because they love injured players. I know it's a joke that we like to say. It's that the price of paying somebody $3 million is the fact that there's a risk of injury. That's the unfortunate nature is you can't field everybody making $20 million. So the role players come with risk, which are talent and injury risk. So that's why they love Marcus Davenport. They love his physique. They love what he brings to the table, but they love that he's on contract for $5 million. They love that because it gives them somebody that they prototypically like, understand what he's about, but because think about it, they're willing to play Marcus Davenport, who has been injured for the last 2-3 years. And why? Because Aiden's going to make 40, he's going to make 5. And that's the way the game works. And they like what he brings to the table. They're always going to talk about that. And one of the reasons that they brought him back is because of the contract. And it stinks, but yeah, you got to hope that, and in the end, they're not scared of the injuries because they just say, okay, we got an offense that we believe can stay healthy for the most part. That offense, because most of the concerns are on defense. And that's probably due to the flying nature, the aggressiveness, the way you got to hit and play in this situation. But the Lions are rolling with, we don't care we just need a little bit on defense and let's roll with an offense.
But here's the thing.
That's what they're doing.
You have the opportunity to make a very balanced team. You've got a defense with one of the premier edge rushers in the game. When Aleem McNeil is healthy, and look, he might not be healthy until sometime closer to Christmas than Thanksgiving, if we're being honest about all of this. When Aleem McNeil is healthy, he is one of the best defensive tackles, one of the best interior defensive linemen in all of the league. You have a very good linebacking core, and you've got a very young secondary that looks to be promising. You have the ability to go out and really tip the scales in your favor, especially with a first-year defensive coordinator. Why would you not go out and add to that? Why would you keep dumping pressure onto your offense? Why would you keep going and just kind of backing everything up and forcing your offense to be the one to carry the load for this team? Your offense, You have an offensive line that is aging quickly and aging out of the sport. You just lost arguably one of the best centers in the league. When we discussed it last, we both agreed that Frank Ragnow was a top 3 center in this league, and he's gone. He's gone. You have no idea what you're doing at center right now. You think you do, but you have no idea what you're doing at center. You look to your left tackle, and Taylor Decker, he's on the downside. And then you look inside, you've got a rookie, you've got possibly a guy who got some really premium snaps last year who might be playing that other guard spot. And then, like I said, you have no idea what you're doing with your center position at this moment in time. So how and why would you not sit there and try to take some of that pressure off of your offense and build that defense up and make it nasty? You and I talk about this all the time. We both subscribe that defense helps you win championships. Defense helps get it done. We both know having a really good offense will win you a Super Bowl because we've seen it with Kansas City. But here's the thing that we've also seen with the Kansas City Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes has lost a shitload of weapons. That Patrick Mahomes is not the same razzle-dazzle guy that he was 4, 5, 6 years ago. You've got a team that is carried regularly by your defense in Kansas City. Make that defense nasty. Take some of that pressure off of what is going to be a top 10 offense. They've been top 3 the last 2 years, top 5, I think the last 3 or 4 years. That is going to be an offense that is going to take a step back, I believe. Okay. I think that they're good enough though, where they'll be probably closer to that 7 range than they will be that 3 range. They're going to be a very good offense, but take some of that pressure off them. Allow them to go out there and possibly make mistakes. And here's the thing. You've seen it. When Jared Goff is pressured, he's not as good. He's not as accurate. He turns the ball over. Have a defense that can go out there and bail this team out when he does turn it over 5 times, because he had multiple games like that last year, even though they sat there and they were cooking dudes and they had one of the best offenses in the league. You go back to that Houston game. That Houston game was just nuts. Jared Goff has an awful game. Turns the ball over a ton. They can't get out of their own way in that first half. They go in at halftime and they come out and it's a completely different team. That offense is firing on all cylinders. And this is the one thing that gets overlooked. That defense came up with critical stop after critical stop after critical stop after critical stop to allow you the ability to come back and get back in that game. Because the offense had shot you in the foot so many times and turned the ball over so many times. You needed a stellar performance from your defense, from a guy like Alex Anzalone who had a monster play in that game. You needed those guys to come up huge to be able to get the ball back for your offense to go back and do some work and help you win that game. Take the pressure off the offense, add somebody for Aiden Hutchinson, and just get after quarterbacks. It's that simple. Don't waste money on scrubs like Levi Onwuzurike, a guy who's been a complete and utter bust since you drafted his ass. To me, it's just maddening because Brad Holmes, I feel like he's the one friend that you have that is penny wise, dollar foolish, right? He'll tell you about how he saved so much money at the grocery store buying this fruit that wasn't necessarily organic because there's no test that show that organic is better if you buy it this way. But he'll turn around and he'll just jerk off all kinds of money on fishing gear, and he doesn't need any more. He's already got 47 rods in his garage, and he's already got tackle boxes to the ceiling of it. There's no need for it, but it's how he wants to spend his money. That to me is what Brad Holmes feels like. He feels like that friend who makes really silly moves because he's comfortable with a player, because it's his guy. And honestly, at this point, it's to the detriment of this team. I think this team is going to struggle this year. I feel like they have one of the hardest schedules. You look at the schedule. I looked at it last night because my buddy was like, hey, do you want to go into any games this year? And I looked at the schedule, and all the games that I really want to go to, they're all road games.
Yep.
And you're like, man, they're on the road for a lot of really, really tough matchups. Even at home, there's no guarantees, right? You've got to play Chicago twice, Chicago looks like it's going to be a much better team, especially since they've got your offensive coordinator over there as their new head coach. They've got a good quarterback who could become something great with good coaching. We'll see what takes place there. They've spent a ton of money on their defense, and that's a team who wants to get after you and really and truly probably should have beat you twice last year. Minnesota, they've got a rookie quarterback, but they've got all the offensive power in the world, and they've got a mastermind for a defensive coordinator over there, and they've got a nasty-ass defense. You look at Green Bay, you got to play them twice as two. They've got a quarterback who could be good, could be great, could be a bust. We're not really sure what Jordan Love is going to be, but they finally have invested in that offense. They've got a defense that is nasty and likes to punch you in the face and has played incredibly well against pretty much everybody else in the league. For some reason, Dan Campbell is their kryptonite. That could all change. You don't know. You don't know. And then you kind of work up and down that schedule. Joe Burrow's one of the best quarterbacks in the league, and I know that they have shit on their defense there, but that is an offense that is incredibly potent. You struggled with Baltimore last year, and you got to go back there and play. You're going to play Kansas City. You got to go there and play. Who else? You got the Steelers, who could be good. They're always a tough out. That defense is always really potent. So that's going to be a bit of a struggle. I don't have a lot of confidence in that offense, but that defense is always difficult to play against. So you're going to have a really difficult schedule, and I don't know why you wouldn't help balance some of this talent out and add to your defense to help your offense succeed. Take some of that pressure off of them. If I told you that you could sign in a blood oath right now, the Lions would end up finishing the season 10 and 7. The Lions would end up finishing 10 and 7. They end up losing 5 more regular season games than they did last year. Would you take it? Because I think the Detroit Lions fans and the fan base is going to be in for a very rude awakening. I think next year or this season, they are going to struggle mightily. I think it's going to be, and just because the way the schedule stacks up, and it's because of the inability of Brad Holmes to go out and make a monster move in the offseason to help solidify this defense. I think this team goes 10 and 7. We went through the schedule. We did the schedule game. I think we kind of ended up somewhere around here, maybe 9 and 8, maybe 10 and 7. I don't think either one of us had them winning 11 games. If I told you right now, this team goes 10 and 7, they'd be on the cusp of making the playoffs. They're not winning the division with that record. They'd be on the cusp. They'd be one of the first teams in, one of the first teams out. Would you take that right now? Because I would tell you this, I would take that. Because I don't know if this team gets to 10 wins this season. I think getting to 10 wins will be a victory. I think getting to 10 wins is going to be incredibly hard, especially with how this team is getting decimated with injuries, the lack of Brad Holmes going out and addressing anything on the defense and helping that defensive line out. You lost arguably one of the best centers in the league, and I don't think that gets talked about nearly enough, and I don't think fans really understand how important Frank Ragnow was to that offense. You then factor in that you've got brand new coordinators on both sides, and yes, that offense is very much Dan Campbell's offense. I get that, but you now have a new guy pulling the strings and pulling the trigger on that offense, and it's a bit of an unknown. You've got a first-time DC on the defense. There's been a lot of changeover, man, and I don't know if Lions fans are ready for the reckoning that is coming, because I think it's going to be a monster step back. I feel like Lions fans have gotten very fat and sassy, living very high on the hog. They've gotten comfortable watching this team just go into Green Bay, punch Green Bay in the mouth, go and take out the Bears, drop elbows and body slam Minnesota, and basically take out anybody who stands in their way. And they're able to do it even if they turn over the ball 5 times in a game. I think Lions fans have gotten this weird sense of comfortable, and I don't know if they're going to be able to handle what's going to happen next year or happen this season coming up, because I think this season is going to be incredibly brutal for their psyche. I don't know if the Lions win that 11th game.
Yeah.
Would you sign that deal that I just laid out?
Absolutely.
They win 10 games.
Yeah, of course. Double digits usually leads to good success. It does. And I think you and your friends and me and you talking, doesn't it kind of have a little bit of Lions luck feel this year where they win like 10, 11 games, but it's not good enough? Like all the teams in the division play good. And there's teams like, you remember when Tom Brady went down and the backup led them to 12 wins and that wasn't good enough because of how good the division was? That could happen.
Good old Matt Castle.
Good old Matt Castle. So that could happen. But remember too, guys, that the Lions can win all their games at home, seven or eight at home, just suffer 1 or 2 losses, and then just go 3 and 5 on the road, and you get to pretty much 10 wins. So I know that the looks of the schedule scare the shit out of people. But again, to your point regarding globally how this team is, they're banking on the offense. They're like, we like this offense. John Morton is going to take J-Mo to the next level. J-Mo, think about this, guys. If everything goes well on a positive note, J-Mo, Amon-Ra, Laporta, Gibbs, that's a fearsome foursome that not a lot of NFL quality defenses are going to be able to stop. Now, the question mark we always look at is Super Bowl caliber. I don't think they're Super Bowl caliber, but I don't think that the window's closed. So it's one of those situations where...
Well, hold on. You said something there that's incredibly important. You don't feel like they're Super Bowl caliber. I feel like for the Detroit Lions right now, it's Super Bowl or bust. What would make them, in your mind, feel like they are a Super Bowl caliber team? Because I'd agree with you. I don't feel like they're a Super Bowl caliber team right now. I feel like they're missing too many pieces and not enough was done. What would put it over the top for you? What if there was one move that would really help you say, yep, this team is in the driver's seat. They have a fantastic chance, a better than 90% chance to make it to the Super Bowl and be a Super Bowl caliber team. What would that move be?
Another great tight end. I think that you just double and triple down on the team.
Tight end. You just double down on offense.
Yes, because look how it is. They're banking on Marcus Davenport, Ahmed Hassanin. There's some young cats in Keith Cooper and Nate Lynn and Derek Barnes. So they believe that they're going to develop young guys. So I'm just going to have to go with what the Lions are saying. I would love them to go out and get an all-pro defensive end, but that's going to break the bank. That scares Brad Holmes, and he's basically telling you, I'm not super. Look what he said. You and I kind of would pretty much presume that getting Zadarius Smith would be pretty easy, right? Like, he's good. You can watch the film. But he said that he had to do all this extra work, all this extra anxiety to do. Like, they literally did background checks, went to all his people, went to all his old coaches, went to the teammates. Like, they go through their process literally. Like, they're not just watching film and saying, okay, get him. They're going through their entire process for all these people going, if we add this drop in, if we add this extra amount of spice to this team, could it fuck it up? So he said that was the hardest trade he ever had to make. You and I go, bro, pick up the phone. Hey, you want a 5th round pick? Boom, take care of it. We need you. We need you. I don't care. We'll make it work. You're a name. We know who you are. Everybody, like you and I threw out Zadarius Smith's name, but Brad doesn't operate like that. You understand? You have to also acknowledge what he does. He loves the scouting. And he loves the in-depth work that he can do. Like, he sits there and that's what he does. And unfortunately, externally is not an area that he's exactly shining in. So I look at it and I say, okay, and I do think that coming from the Rams, he understands, I think that he's more of an offensive mind, where he's like, we're going to win with offense. We're going to win with all pro level talent at a lot of spots, but we need the highest played player as a quarterback, and you're investing quite a bit in the talent. J-Mo, Amon-Ra, Sam Laporta, Jahmyr Gibbs, and David Montgomery. So I think that he believes we win with offense and we survive with defense. You and I and I think the league would view differently, where you got to shine and thrive on defense, but they're hoping that they get contributions from Tyrion Arnold, Aiden Hutchinson, and some young players. Tyleek Williams is a first-round pick. Marcus Davenport, former first-round pick. DJ Reader is a veteran. So that's the philosophy in the way in which I see it. It's thrive and dominate on offense and survive and bend, don't break on defense, and that can get you a lot of wins. Now, can they get you a Super Bowl? That's where you and I think, are in agreement that you need more help. You need the other all-pro defensive end. You need to make 2 more moves. Another linebacker and another defensive end, maybe even another defensive back. 3 moves on defense to get you to the Super Bowl level. But we'll see. We'll see how this progresses, because remember, we're only 1 week into camp. Great insight and analysis from Adam regarding global concerns, major things to watch. But remember, too, we're going to see some development from a lot of young cats and some good football players. Because before we get out of here, our last 5 minutes, the Tigers are collapsing. How much is your panic level? They're about to lose a series to the lowly Pirates. They just trotted out a young player for his debut. He got rocked, and Tariq Skubal most likely will be back for this weekend start Saturday, but he's on paternity leave. Because I watched that game that took place on Tuesday. I don't know what happened. It looked like my nephew's Little League games at times where they were making mental errors galore. It's like they went on vacation and they're like, oh, like it actually kind of has the feel that Tigers believe their own hype and like, yeah, we're World Series caliber. We're like hot shit. And then all of a sudden they have like lessened their intensity by 10%, which is just enough in baseball to get your ass beat. Now, they gave themselves enough cushion that even with a loss, they're going to be 18, 17 games above 500, but 8 of 9 losses doesn't look good heading into playing Toronto, one of the hottest clubs in baseball. My concern level right now is a 7 out of 10.
Oh, bro, I'm at a 9 right now.
9 on fire.
It's exactly what you said, man. This is a team that I feel like has bought their own hype. This is a team that I feel like they are better than what they're actually performing. And here's the thing. You look at what this staff is doing currently, right? And you compare it to what you had before the All-Star break. This was a team where you could roll a pitcher out there and they'd give you 6 solid innings, maybe 5, and you could then turn it over to your bullpen, and your bullpen would get guys out. You needed a timely hit. You would have guys come up to the plate, and they would miraculously smack a ball either out of the park or it would drop in, and you'd be able to get 2 runs home. All of that's completely changed. You've got guys struggling to give you clean baseball. They're getting hit up in the early innings, which then forces you to go to your bullpen early, and that bullpen hasn't been able to get anybody out. It seems like the bats have completely cooled off, and they're swinging at everything and missing. And if they are hitting anything, it's going right to the other team. To me, this is a team that if Scott Harris doesn't pull the trigger at the trade deadline, I'm going to throw my hands up and I'm going to pull my hair out and I'm going to absolutely scream. There has to be a move made. And look, baseball is a weird sport. This is something very early on when we started doing this podcast. This was something that you and I talked about quite a bit, and something that we both realized. Baseball is a game that is a law of averages.
Yeah.
If you're a 300 hitter, you're going to eventually hit 300. This is something I think we talked about earlier this season when this team was incredibly hot. I thought the bottom might fall out, and here it is. The bottom's falling out. You can only play so well for so long, and then there's going to be a correction. Right now, we're in the midst of this correction. And because of how well they played that first half of the season, I'm not really sure what this team is. I don't know if I don't believe this team is as bad as they've been the last 9-10 games. I don't think they're this team. That being said, I don't know if they're the same team that was the front half of the season before the All-Star game. I'm assuming that they're probably somewhere in the middle, but you have these polar opposites that have played their way out through the season. And I don't know if we've gotten a stretch of baseball where they've kind of shown their true selves. And that's why I say Scott Harris has to go out and has to make a move by next week and has to get a guy in here, has to get a couple of guys. Like, if we're being honest, they need a bat, they need a starter, and they need a reliever. And if you can get 2 relievers, I'd go get 2 relievers. If you can get 2 bats, I'd go get 2 bats. You have to go out there and you have to make a move. You've got to be able to at least get 2 of those 3 positions, and they have to come in and help this roster, because right now it feels like this team is floundering. I've got zero trust when Jack Flaherty's on the mound. None whatsoever. I feel like Tariq Skubal can give you a good outing. I'm not sure what you're going to get with Casey Mize at this point. Not sure what you're going to get with Reese Olson. Kenta Maeda. Jack Flaherty was the guy who was brought in to be that number 2. And I would have a hard time making a case for him being a low-level number 3, a solid number 4. So you've got some work to do with putting this team back together coming out of the All-Star break, because right now my panic level is incredibly high, and I need Scott Harris to do something before the trade deadline ends.
Yeah, it's a quick turnaround. Life hits you fast in baseball, but luckily it's a swoon in July. You still got August and September to turn things around. But yeah, it looks like a team that needs a move. And my goodness, it just seems like something's happened where the chemistry's off, the confidence maybe dipped a little bit, and in the end, Riley Green doing too much, gets benched in a game where you got to win. Dang, that's not good. A mental day off in a stretch where you're losing. Oh, I can't wait to see because what happens against Toronto, one of the teams that's playing pretty hotly. It's going to be at Comerica, so I do think you're going to get at least a split. But it is slowly. You had a 15-game lead, and it already dipped to 9 against the Guardians, and you got to play them a lot more. So it can dip pretty fast, and that's the crazy part about baseball. It's a long season. You don't get an award for being the best team at the end of June by the All-Star break. So let's see what happens, but my goodness. Make sure you follow Adam on X, Twitter, at AdamRSTROZ. Follow the network at Detroit Podcast. If you agree or disagree, if you think that it's way too much of an overreaction to look at everything that we did with the Lions like this, let us know. Hit us up. You guys are definitely a crazy fan base that we love. And guess what? Here's what is crazy about you fans, is that we post all day and night about the Lions at Detroit Podcast. Lots of intrigue, lots of insight, lots of insider videos. You know what, cuz the fan base is really loving? Is loving the Doc talking shit about the Bears. I just posted, I knew that when I read some reports and I'm interested because I want to know if Ben Johnson, how much he had an impact. It's a natural storyline. And one of the first reports from a reporter I trust is Caleb Williams throws an interception. You know, my brain is like, oh, I'm going to talk shit. And I've activated the Bears fans. They've called me a stalker. They've called me they've blocked our Bears fans have blocked our account, calling us scorned lovers. I love it. Football is back. I sparked the division rivalry. Bears are trash. I love it. We're talking shit already, even in the first week of camp. It's already got like almost 60,000 views just off a simple tweet. And I knew it too. Just poking the Bears, literally. And as long as the Lions, home opener, beat the Bears, life will be good to start this season. So, hey, one of the things that I think everyone knows, the Detroit Sports Podcast, Doc and Jock, we're in the mix. Best shit talkers in the world of sports. Let's go. Bring it. We'll be there. We'll be in the mix talking shit, and we'll be here if you want to talk shit back to us. That's what makes this fun. Podcasting is great, and thank you guys for being a part of the Doc and Jock community. It's going to be a fun ride all throughout training camp and all throughout the Detroit Tigers summer. Let's go. And I can't wait next week to fire it up again. Best part of my week, hour spent with my guy, Adam the Jock Srozinski, on Doc and Jock.
You fucking podcasters. I said don't let them in here.